Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about a 300 blackout load that's supposed to be pretty darn cool and pretty darn effective. Now, we came into some of this stuff and we wanted to test it out. I know that the guys over at Copper have some of it available, and its packaging looks like military packaging. It was acquired from a defense contractor that was using it for testing. It was surplus that they got rid of, and we were able to get our hands on it. So we're going to take a close look at this round. It's a 110 grain Barnes TTSX bullet. It's a copper projectile, but we'll get into more about that here in a moment in the video, plus the guns we're going to test this cartridge out of. But before we get into today's video, guys, if you enjoy our content, please take a moment just to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. Just click that subscribe button and comment down below, because that helps us with the algorithms, and we greatly appreciate it. With that being said, let's get started with today's video. Guys, please swing by and check out Big Daddy Unlimited, BDU. They help support us here at the Military Arms channel with products and things like that, so we can continue to bring you content. There's a link in the video description down below that'll take you to the Mac blog and website. Please follow that link, and from there you'll find a link to Big Daddy Unlimited, and try them out just for 99 cents. You can see what they're all about. In essence, they're just like a big online store that has amazing prices. So please, again, check out BDU. So this Black Hills load, this little feller right here, is what we're talking about today. The packaging that you may find on the market, should you be able to find some of this stuff, its regular packaging does not look like this military packaging. This, again, is a overrun for a defense contractor, hence the military-ish looking packaging. But what makes this round so special? Well, first of all, it's a supersonic load. The bullet, we'll talk about the velocity data out of the two primary 300 blackout firearms we did our testing with here today. But it's a supersonic load. It has an ogive on the bullet, so it'll stack normally in a standard magazine. You don't need to buy a 300 blackout specific magazine. You should be able to get 30 of these in a regular Stenag magazine. So the ogive lends itself to that. It's a solid copper bullet, and it's doing a couple thousand feet per second. Again, we'll get into more details about that. Being a solid copper bullet, we did see that the round does tend to stay together, and there's a lot of marketing around this that talks about it being good for police, military, and hunting applications, and we're going to put that to the test in today's video. What are we going to put to the test? Well, first of all, we brought out some ballistics gelatin, and we're going to use clear ballistics, which is a 10% gel. Now, it is not organic gelatin, so there is going to be some differences in terms of the actual test results. If you read a blog post or see another article that uses organic gel, you're going to find the measurements will be slightly different. Should get about the same depth, but in terms of the stretch cavities and things like that, the silicon-based clear ballistics gelatin tends to be a little bit more durable than actual organic gel. The two pistols we're going to use today for our testing are both SIG Vertices. Well, one's technically a Rattler, but this one has a 9-inch barrel. And so 9-inch barrels, 9 to 8-inch barrels are pretty common for 300 blackout firearms. You can get them in 16-inch barrel configurations, but most people go with a pistol or an SBR, and that 8 to 9-inch barrel length seems to be the sweet spot that most people go for. But Maxim Defense, SIG, and other companies are also making very short-barreled versions of 300 blackout guns. The cartridge kind of lends itself to a short barrel, and so we brought out the Rattler, and this is a pistol as well, and this one has a 5.5-inch barrel. And so, with that being said, let's get into some of the testing that we did. Again, we did gel testing, we did penetration testing with cinder blocks, and we then did a meat target test. And again, all credit to Paul Harrell for coming up with the name. We do our own version of it. Typically, we put a watermelon in the center. Not this time, because I can't find watermelons this time of the year. So we're using water, but then we have 2 pieces of ham on either side. And we'll show you guys what that looks like in the video. I think you're going to be fairly impressed with the performance of this particular bullet, because so far it's looking pretty interesting. Let's talk about some of that testing. The first firearm we used was the 9-inch barreled Vertis pistol using the Black Hills ammunition ammo. We did some gel testing with it, and the results are pretty interesting. So it's claimed by the marketing of Black Hills that it will do about 18 inches of penetration in ballistics gel. And out of the 9-inch barrel of the SIG Virtus, that's exactly what we saw. We saw just about, a little over 17 inches, about 17.25 inches of penetration in the ballistics gel out of the 9-inch barrel with this round. Now, if you guys see me looking off to the right, that's because I have a little cheat sheet over there so I can make sure I get the numbers and stuff like that right, because I don't want to screw it up and give you misinformation. So the penetration started about 2 inches into the gelatin block. So it's just a clean hole. Then we start to see this bullet open up, and it opens up into 4 different petals. At about 2 inches in on the 9-inch barreled gun, the Virtus, we start to see that stretch cavity appear. Now that stretch cavity, turns out what's left behind, people always call me on this. There's temporary stretch and there's permanent damage that's done. And I'm going to call what I see as leftover stretch cavity permanent damage. So the permanent damage was about 1.5 inches tall. And that stretch cavity lasted for about 7.5 inches. So immediately upon entering soft tissue, it opened up into 4 petals, and you could see it spin for about 7.5 inches. And then that's where we saw all the stretching of the tissue, and then it kind of settled down, and it just is about the size of the bullet with its petals out spinning through the gel, and it came to rest at 17.25 inches. So it seems that the marketing for the bullet out of a 9-inch barrel is spot on. We're seeing right around 18 inches of penetration in that 10% silicon gel, again, not organic. It's also worth noting that at the muzzle, we measured the velocity of this out of the 9-inch barrel at 2,209 feet per second, which gave us 1,192 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Downrange at 100 yards out of the 9-inch barrel, we were still seeing a velocity of 1938, so it's still staying pretty close to that 2,000 foot per second mark at 100 yards. Part of that's due to its G1 ballistic coefficient of being 0.295. So it's giving pretty much good handgun defensive load performance at 15 yards, which is important. I should include that, which we shot the gel with the pistols. It's giving like good 9mm handgun defensive load performance, but it's extending that out to at least 100 yards, if not further. So that's where this really shines over something like 9mm, which is going to lose velocity with a hollow point very, very quickly because it's not as ballistically efficient as this round is. So next, let's talk about the Rattler. How much did we give up by chopping off that barrel length and getting it down to 5.5 inches? Okay, guys, so let's talk about the SIG Rattler and what happens when we shorten the barrel to 5.5 inches. This is where things get really, really interesting. Okay, so before I get into the details, I get a lot of questions about the red dot sight on my Rattler. This is an A&R design anvil mount. This allows me to put an RMR type red dot sight or any red dot sight that uses the same footprint on it. Then it has backup iron sights that co-witness to the red dot sight. It's designed for firearms like this, and it works really, really well. Both of the firearms out here today are running OSS suppressors. Okay, with that being said, so what makes it so interesting? The performance in ballistics gel was nearly identical. So at 15 yards, we saw almost identical performance. So about 1.5 inches into the ballistics gel, we see that bullet start to open up into its 4 petals, and then we start to see that permanent wound channel appear. Okay, that permanent wound channel is right around 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches in height, which is about the same as we saw with the 9-inch barreled gun. And then when we take a look at the overall length of that stretch cavity, it's still 7.5 inches long. So it's very, very similar performance. Now, where it gets more interesting is that this round, the round we fired out of the Rattler, actually hit the previous round because we switched the blocks around end to end so we could get a clean block for the Rattler versus shooting the same block twice. And we flipped the block around. As fate would have it, the Rattler's round hit the Virtus's round, deflected, shed a petal, and still continued to penetrate about 18 inches into the gel. So even though we're looking at 1,933 feet per second at the muzzle, at 15 yards, we saw pretty much the same performance in ballistics gel. Now, when we get out to 100 yards, we're looking at about 1,679 feet per second. So now we're getting down to, closer to 1,600 feet per second at 100 yards with the short barrel, where we're still up at the 1,938 velocity at 100 yards with the 9-inch barrel. So the longer barrel is going to favor this cartridge at greater distances, but at CQB distances, you're going to see really, really good performance out of a 5.5-inch barrel like the SIG Rattler. But I can still shoot this gun to 100 yards, and it's still going to be a quite capable round. But if you're going to push it out any further than 100 yards, you're probably going to want to go with the longer barrel for the 300 Blackout cartridge. We decided to take 2 water jugs, set them side by side, and shoot them from 15 yards to see how well this 110 grain TTSX bullet would do. The results were pretty impressive. All right, guys, so the bullet made it through the first water jug, blew it up, came out at least in part on the back side. We have leakage, a fairly big hole, about a finger-sized hole. Let's go ahead and see if I can recover a bullet from this or not. Here's something. There it is. Lost a couple petals, but or maybe not. We got it right there. Did lose one petal. This is our improvised meat target. All credit to Paul Harrell for coming up with the term, but we're unable to get watermelons, which is what we typically use for the center of our targets. But this time, because we can't get a watermelon, we have a jug of water. On the outside, we have 2 hams. So we're going to see what this 300 Blackout round is capable of in terms of traveling through tissue, water, and given what I've seen already, I don't know if we're going to get it into that last ham or not. So might actually be able to eat that one. Let's see what happens. This is the remnants of our meat target. If we take a look at the front ham that was hit, let's go ahead and cut this open. We can see the damage to the soft tissue is considerable. It blew chunks of the ham off. It made it through the water. Hit kind of low on the water, traveled through the water. This appears to be the exit wound on the back ham with the entrance right there. So we're not going to be able to recover the actual bullet because it made it through 2 hams and a thing of water. Now the Virtus. The last series of tests we did was to do a simple barrier penetration test. The first test we conducted with the 9-inch barreled Virtus, and it took us 2 shots to get the 110 grain projectile to punch through that cinder block. Now we're trying to shoot through the opening and not the support structure. There's 2 openings in the cinder block with the support structure in the middle. So it took us 2 shots to get through that cinder block. Next, we decided to do the 5.5-inch barreled Rattler, and this time it took us right around 3 shots to get through it, but it looks like I accidentally hit that support structure, at least with one of those rounds, which would have deflected that bullet and energy away from the back wall because it looked like the first round actually made it through, and therefore it took 3 rounds. Chances are, if the shots had been in the same placement as with the 9-inch barreled gun, we would have seen similar results. So about 2 rounds at 15 yards to get through a cinder block. All right, guys, so let's do a little bit of shooting at 100 yards using 5 rounds of the Black Hills ammo out of the 9-inch barreled Virtus. So at 100 yards, which I have this zeroed to, it's it's still quite effective with the longer barrel, and accuracy is more than acceptable. Didn't lock open on that last shot. So basically I was aiming at his neck. So I can't see the impacts through the scope, but I could hear it hitting steel. But the point is, 200 yards, I can still make the shot. So what do I think about this load from Black Hills? I'm honestly impressed with it. I think it delivers on every promise that's made on the Black Hills website. And I think that it really helps to make the 300 Blackout shine as a defensive cartridge. But it does so and extends that range because you're using a much more aerodynamic bullet. So that's where it differentiates itself from pistol caliber carbines. And that's why the Blackout is such an amazing caliber. Not only does it give you that really good performance with the supersonics, but you also have the capability of running subsonics in a suppressor, and these things can be extremely quiet when you do that. So it's kind of a dual role caliber if you own a suppressor. If you don't own a suppressor, there's really no reason to shoot subsonics. They're even more expensive typically than the supers. And the supers are going to give you the performance that you're probably looking for. So I like the ammunition. I think it works great. I'm going to keep some of this stuff around in my bedside gun, which is the SIG Rattler. This stuff is currently available over at the Copper Custom website. This exact stuff that we have here, this military packaged stuff that we picked up from a defense contractor that was unloading it. But you can also, perhaps some point down the road after the panic buying's done, be able to find the commercial version of it. It'll have slightly different packaging, but the exact same round. Guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, we're supported by you, our viewing audience. Please click the link down below, go to Patreon, check out some of the perks. You'll have direct access to me. I answer all personal messages that you send to me. Also, you'll have early access to videos like this one and other things. We've built a really cool community over there. Again, the Patreon link down below. Also, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.